Tony D and Little Joan, and this is your screenwriter's take on Nobody, starring Bob Odenkirk as a dude who could kill a bunch of people. Smash like and subscribe. Thank you for smash liking and subscribing. Check out my books, links in the description. Comedy Heart in South Jersey. It's the Pineys. Books 1 through 15, available at Amazon.com. Don't forget, Kindle Unlimited is free. Excuse me. So, Nobody is definitely a movie that is in my wheelhouse. And by the way, this is the non-spoiler review. It's definitely in my wheelhouse. I found it entertaining, but is it a good movie? And I would say not really, because what's missing in this movie is in the details. Don't really get into why or how Bob can do all the things he can do too much. And what little they do get into doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And yeah, so it's kind of like, again, we get a lot of movies made by other people who make movies, and they take the cool things from those movies and they kind of rework them and then make a new movie. And at some level, there's nothing wrong with that. You can rework things a little bit and incorporate them into your shtick, I'll say, your screenplay. Like, if you're doing a mafia scene or a mafia movie, you're probably going to have a few scenes that are like The Godfather. They're not going to be The Godfather, but they're going to be Godfather-like, because people expect them. You kind of want them. Now, you have to make them different. There has to be aspects of it that are different. You have to take a fresh take on it. But people understand there's going to be scenes of a funeral, probably a wedding, probably a guy getting killed in a very dramatic way, betrayal. You know, there are all these themes that you expect in a mafia movie. In the Hitman movie, and this is essentially what it is, there's a bunch of tropes. And in this case, the trope is, exactly the same. A guy who formerly was a cold stone killer and could murder people at a whim suddenly decides, hey, I want a family and a good life, and I'm not going to kill people anymore. But my past comes back, and now I have to kill people again. So it's a fine formula. I enjoy it because it's very action oriented, and what's different in those movies is not the formula, but the action. So the action is different. But the problem with Nobody is in the details after you start thinking about it. And they're going to make a sequel to this movie, which I'm kind of not surprised. Maybe in the sequel they'll get more into the details of who exactly he was, because they never quite explain it. But that being said, would I recommend it? If you like these movies like I do, you'll find it entertaining. I definitely would have been pissed had I paid for the movie. To me, this is not a movie worthy of your $14 or whatever at a theater. You just would have been like, it was okay, but it was a lot of money to pay for something that felt a little unfinished in terms of the screenplay. And the problem is either in the screenplay or the director cut out those details for reasons I don't quite understand. Bob Odenkirk is great in the role. He looks the part. Seems to be in shape. Seems to have, gotten in shape for it. And dyed his hair. Like, he looks younger than I think he actually is. It's fun. It's got some funny moments. Christopher Lloyd's in it, which is always fun to see. RZA is one of the characters in it. And so it's not uninteresting. It's an entertaining movie, but the screenplay is flawed in my view. I would have said, I would have asked those key questions. If I was the producer, I would have said, well, what exactly does he do? I don't understand. You know, why is he able to do all this? Why is he hiding? How did he even hide to begin with? Like, none of it makes any sense to me. It feels like they added an addition to John Wick. That's what this feels like. It feels like, okay, instead of going to the Continental Hotel, like in another part of the country, there's another group of hitmen, and they have their own rules and places to meet, and here it is. So yeah, that's my non-spoiler review. Now to get into the spoilers, and there's not much to spoil. I mean, you know how this movie ends. He is a retired hitman. The bad guys come back to kill him. He kills everybody and saves his family. The end. It wasn't going to end any other way. Wasn't going to end any other way. So, first act, they set up Odenkirk's character as a put-upon, cucked worker in a suburban neighborhood who can't get ahead. He's a loser, and normal life sucks. And he's trying to buy his father-in-law's business. He wants to take it over. And then one night, two people break into his house, and he has an opportunity during the break-in to take out the robbers, but he doesn't. And his son is struggling with one, and rather than take out the other robber, he says, son, let him go. And the robbers rob them, and he's emasculated in front of his son. His son kind of can't forgive him. And then for some reason, everybody hears about the incident, which doesn't make any sense to me. Like, his co-workers hear about it and their family, so that I guess that kind of makes sense. But like, everybody's talking about how cucked he is. And it's sort of like, on the one hand, and it hasn't happened yet in the movie. In the movie, we don't know he's a hitman, but from the advertising, you kind of know he's something. He's not just a guy that snaps and can magically beat up guys. But the idea is he's being pressured to finally come back out as murderous Bob Odenkirk. So he gears up and goes after the two people who robbed his house, not because he wants their money, because they didn't get much money, but because his daughter lost her kitty bracelet. So he gears up and goes, gets his watch back, which they also stole, but then realizes they don't have the kitty bracelet, and B, the couple that robbed him have a baby that's on like a breathing thing, which is manipulative, in my view. The only reason that baby's there is so Odenkirk can get mad at himself for even trying to take revenge. And then he goes outside in the rain, of course, because it has to be more dramatic, and punches a wall a bunch of times. Then he gets on a bus, and then he's lamenting that he couldn't take his rage out on somebody. And then, of course, a group of drunken, and they turn out to be Russian mobsters, nearly crash into a bus, then get on the bus and start harassing everybody. Now, this makes zero sense. Understand, it makes zero sense. Actual Russian mobsters may be obnoxious, but they never take the bus, number one. They never take the bus. They're mobsters. Mobsters don't take the bus. They just don't. They have more than enough guys and can make a phone call and get a guy to show up in a car. So, that was weird. But let's say, okay, the Russians are in such a hurry, they're going to take a bus. Like, they even know where the buses go. They never take them. They get on the bus, and they harass everybody on the bus. like everyone. And for some reason, the Russians have black guys in their gang, which they go on to explain. One was the son of an Ethiopian who competed in the Olympics in Russia and had sex with a local Russian woman, and so he's a black Russian. But then there's another black guy in the gang who I guess is just local. Look, I get it. You got to have diversity hires. But Russians only have... That's part of the deal in these ethnic gangs. If you're Italian, you have to be Sicilian. You can't even be regular Neapolitan Italian. You have to be Sicilian to be in the mafia. Full Sicilian. Russia? Yeah, you got to be Russian. Now, the one black guy was kind of an interesting character, but there's another guy at least. I think at least one other guy. Didn't make any sense. So if you're gonna do organized crime, do it right. Okay? Stop going out of your way to put there are other roles in the movie. Black characters could have been in, I guess. I mean, RZA's in it. He's black. This racial counting has no place in movies. None. Well, that didn't annoy me that much. It's something to mention because it's just another strike against the movie. But anyhow, the Russians bother everybody on the bus, including a young woman. And so naturally, Odenkirk's going to take out his rage on the Russians. And he does. And he beats them so bad. The one guy, he hits his trachea, breaks his trachea, and he's suffocating, and he has to do a tracheotomy in order so he can breathe and live. So, and then he just leaves him on the bus and walks away. They all end up in the hospital, and of course, the guy with the trachea is the brother of a psychopath Russian mob boss. Of course. So, but the thing is, this had nothing to do with Odenkirk's former life. So it's sort of just random that he ran into them, took his rage out on them. And again, like, if Odenkirk's a professional criminal too, and a professional hitman, typically you would think these guys would have the discipline not to just take their rage out when they get so frustrated they have to punch people. Like a professional doesn't do that. Mob guys don't do that. Not the ones that are out of prison. The ones in prison do that. Because they let their anger get the better of them, and they beat some poor sap on the street and got arrested. Most of them won't do that. They only make moves against people that they A, get away with, and B, gain them something. It didn't gain Odenkirk anything to beat up these Russians. It didn't gain the Russians anything to come on the bus and start messing with people. The Russians should have come on the bus and just sat there. Maybe they could have found a different way for Odenkirk to get mad at him and beat him up. I don't know. So then they show the Russian mob boss, and he's a weird guy who likes to do kind of karaoke. And he is in charge of the Russians' safe deposit money. It's like Russian retirement. And he has to watch it, like millions and millions of dollars. And in order to prove that he's not a little light in the loafers, I think, to the other Russian mobsters, after he sings, he kills a guy right in front of him, which they seem okay with. Which, again, not something a professional's going to do. It seemed extreme. I know why they did it. It was to show you what a psychopath he is. Okay. So then Odenkirk now comes to life. He is having sex with his wife again. He's making lasagna. He's loving life. He's a new man because he got to finally take out his rage, and he's manly. But now the Russians are after him. And Rizzo warns him, and then eventually the Russians come while he's making lasagna. So he locks his family in a panic room in the basement and proceeds to kill a bunch of Russian mobsters. And they're seemingly endless. Now, during the fight, the mob boss says, I want him alive, of course. He kills, I don't know, like 5 guys, and then the Russians stun him and put him in the car. He manages to break out of the trunk, killing the guys in the car in the process, including the Black Russian. And it starts a running gag that Odenkirk tells his story to someone who's badly injured, and as he's telling it, he gets to a point, and then the guy dies, and he realizes he's talking to no one. So he eventually goes back to his family, lets him out of the panic room, and then it's not clear if his wife knows what he did in the past. I think she did. And he explains it like he was an auditor. Now, I'm not sure if he worked for the government or if he worked for... I think he did. I think he worked for the government. And as an auditor, what he would do is if they found a organization that had gone too far, whatever that means, he would just go in and kill everybody. So it's supposed to be this scary thing, secret, off-the-books thing that Odenkirk's a part of, and that one day he just decided, oh, I want a family and kids, and I love that, and I want to get out of the life. And that's what it always effing is. Except in the first John Wick, which is why that movie's good. So now the Russians are after him, and he has to go after the Russians. So he tells his wife, puts her in a car, tells her to take off, and she's like, well, I'll go hide, which doesn't make any sense because the Russians, in organized crime, can find just about everybody. They should have done something else for the wife. Odenkirk should have taken command and said, listen, go to this place that Russians can't find it. It's a safe house or whatever. And it's run by my friend. He also has a dad in a nursing home, Christopher Lloyd. And he worries like, oh no, I got to call dad and warn him. So he just warns him. And then 2 guys show up to kill him, and Christopher Lloyd kills them. So now Christopher Lloyd is one of the guys too. And Rizzo is too. He's talking to him on the radio throughout the movie. But they're all retired auditors. Or guys who were on his team in the past. Anyhow, now he's gearing up to fight the Russians. So he goes to the Russians. First he booby traps. He buys the business from his father-in-law. Booby traps the place. Then goes to the Russians. And basically tells them another story. This time the guy's alive. When he went to kill a guy, the guy begged for his life, wanted out of the business, and he gave him the opportunity to quit and do what he did, start a family. And a year later he checked on him, and it turned out, yes, that's what he had done. He had given up the life, and he became a family man, and he was very happy, and that's what set Odenkirk off on his quest to become a family man himself. Which isn't a bad thing. I like that aspect of the movie, but that detail would have worked better in an organization that was more fleshed out. And it needed to be more fleshed out, in my view. So anyhow, he goes to the Russian. He confronts him. He has a landmine as a surprise that he holds, so the Russians don't immediately shoot him. And he has a talk with him, basically gives him the same choice and tells him that story. And so the Russian can walk away. But we already know he's a psychopath, so I don't even know why he's bothering. So then Odenkirk leaves. The Russians chase him, of course, back to his father-in-law's, where now he's going to fight them. But Odenkirk's a little in over his head, gets shot, can't get in the building, but then, of course, RZA and Christopher Lloyd show up to help him fight. And they barely beat them. And it's like, if Odenkirk didn't get saved by RZA and his father, he'd be dead. But kind of another hole in the script. And then they kill everybody. All the Russians are dead. And now the movie's over. And Odenkirk, who spent all his gold on his father-in-law's business just so he could have a killing field for these Russians, I guess sold the business, and it's a few months later, and they moved to Florida, and now he's going to set up a new life, and RZA and Christopher Lloyd are bringing the weapons, and they've got a whole RV full of machine guns, which I'm like, why? Why are they doing that? I guess they're starting new lives. How are they doing this? Where are they getting all the money? Odenkirk spent all his gold. I mean, he had some money. I don't understand where they got the money, what the auditors do. Were they gangsters, auditors, or were they federal? I think they were federal government, because there's a scene in which one of the Russians uses her contacts in the Pentagon, blackmails him in order to find out who Odenkirk is. And when she finds out, she's so afraid she quits and tells the Russian mob boss, good luck. So, and I'm going to make an analogy here that's a little unfair, but Longlegs, I reviewed the other day. The problem with Longlegs, it was all style, no substance. Nobody is not all style, but it chooses style over those important details we needed about auditors. They're not really fleshed out. I mean, it wouldn't have taken much to tell us exactly who Odenkirk, his father, and RZA used to be. The movie had time for it. It wastes a lot of time in the beginning of the movie showing us Bob Odenkirk as a cuck. The problem with showing, it's not a surprise when Odenkirk starts killing everybody. Look at the thumbnail on the screen of Nobody. He's being beaten up by multiple guys. We know how this isn't going to be a movie about a guy who gets beaten up all day. It's going to be about a movie about a guy who gets into a lot of fights. And he can fight. He's constantly exercising, by the way. So, at some point, we're going to see Odenkirk do stuff. We see clips of the movie. We can see the trailer. There's action in the trailer. And I think the implication is there. And they released this scene where he burns bodies in his basement. So, and here's a tagline from the movie. Sometimes the man you don't notice is the most dangerous of all. So it's not a bad movie, not even a bad setup, but the execution wastes a lot of time trying to convince us, oh, Bob Odenkirk's just a normal guy. Surprise, he's a hitman. We knew that. The trailer tells us that. This thumbnail tells us, implies something. There's no point in hiding it. None. You know, unless Odenkirk, and he touches upon this a little bit in the movie, that he's a little unsatisfied that they didn't think he could adjust to normal life. But his character says, no, I love it. He does love it. He loves being bored. I think we needed to see him loving his boring life. And he doesn't. the implication is when he starts killing people or beating up people again, he comes alive. So, you know, why are we not, why are we getting this scene? Like, there's a scene with his neighbor. He gets a new car, or, well, it's an old car he inherits from his dad, and he hears about the robbery in his house and basically says, oh man, I wish those guys had come here. I'd have shown them, like, why didn't you, kind of thing. And it's like, how many people heard about this damn robbery? It literally happens, and then everybody Bob Odenkirk knows hears about it and has the same reaction. Oh, I would have done something. I don't know why you didn't. And it's like, and logically, could Odenkirk had not stopped the robbery? Like, how would that have given away his position as the auditor? Right? As the secret auditor in hiding. The cops came anyway and filled out a report. So let's imagine Odenkirk's character takes the initiative during the robbery scene because he also notices the gun that they're pointing at his family isn't even loaded. So he knocks out the girl. They overcome both robbers. The cops come, and the robbers take him away. Or the cops take him away. So he's exposed the exact same amount. He's not a Superman because he had the help of his son. It doesn't give his position away as an auditor who can kill massive amount of people. He just would have clocked this woman, and it was a woman, with a club. She would have been knocked out. Anybody could have done that. So why did he bother to say, no, I gotta not hit this woman. I gotta be a total cuck. Doesn't make any sense. If he loves his life and his family so much, why wouldn't he do that? They still could have been hurt. His son still could have been hurt by the guy he was struggling with on the ground. So the movie, when you think about it, kind of doesn't make any sense. Another version of this movie could have been that he, if they had slowed it down, it could be the sort of movie like Falling Down. Like, Odenkirk's character is not a former hitman at all. He's actually a guy who's cucked. And rage is building up inside him because he can't feel manly towards his wife and his family. He's not the man anymore. But then the robbery happens, and for whatever reason, he chokes in that moment. His son doesn't look up to him anymore. His wife is losing respect for him. So finally, one night on a bus, he gets into a fight with a bunch of, not Russian mobsters, but drunken morons who are just harassing him and pissing him off. And he finally loses control and beats the hell out of all of them. Now, he's a normal guy fighting other normal guys. Totally possible. But he's been, we find out, I don't know, practicing martial arts. And the background could have been something like he was practicing martial arts because when he was a kid, he had an anger problem and he would lose control. So he started martial arts as a way to get control of his anger, which he did, but he pulled it back a little too much. And now he's rediscovered his anger. And now he decides to go out on the street and right wrongs as a vigilante. Something like that. And during the course of the movie, it escalates, and then there's some sort of big confrontation with more of a local crime boss, as opposed to a Russian crime boss that has a giant club and millions of guys. It kind of would work better smaller, I think. And it would have worked better as a normal guy, just kind of using his normal guy sensibilities to take on a group of local thugs. I think it might have worked good as that kind of movie. As opposed to, okay, he's this mysterious auditor that I guess used to work for the government and I guess had a bunch of unlimited resources and I guess can keep using those resources somehow. Another way to go with it would have been that, yes, he's an auditor. Auditors are a thing in the federal government. They're off the books. They're secret. He retired. The other ones are retired. And now they've been reactivated because of what he did. You know, something like that. Another version would have been the criminal version of the auditor. Like John Wick. He was an auditor for the various gangs. And he would go in and kill them. And the government knows about him. And they don't mess with him. Because they like that he retired. Maybe that was part of his deal. He retired. And the government said, okay, we're not going to prosecute you. But stay out of trouble. But now that he's popped the cork again, the sequel can be, now the government's mad. And they're going to send people, hey, you can't do this anymore. Or, hey, you're going to have to do a mission for us. Because they aren't planning on a sequel. Again, maybe the sequel can tell us who these guys are really and flesh that out. But I would have liked to have seen it in the first movie. I think you could have done that by cutting away some of the fat in the beginning. So again, it's not an unentertaining movie. The action scenes are fun. Odenkirk's fun to watch. You kind of know what's going to happen, but, you know, the mobsters are sufficiently evil. But it's a little ham-fisted. If you're looking for something nuanced, no. Now, if you're looking for something kind of mindless, it's okay. Check your brain at the door, and you could probably enjoy Nobody. And that's it for me, Tony D, and Little Joan. Check us out on all the other links. God, my allergies are killing me today. I'm going to have to take an allergy pill. We're on the green site, the orange site, and the black site. Next up for me, I'm done for August. I couldn't get anything going for Labor Day. It's hard to get stuff going on Labor Day. So look for me after the holiday. Got a bunch of stuff in September. And give me some time to promote Book 15 of the Pineys. I haven't even really done much promotion for it. I know. Other than here, of course. Thanks for tuning in. We'll see you in the next one.